Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Right now, Western New York is facing a health and a safety crisis that is a direct result of Democrats' dangerous open border and sanctuary city, sanctuary state policies. Communities across our state are being forced to deplete their tax dollars to house migrants. Multiple counties in my district, in fact, most of the counties in my district along the southern tier, have declared a state of emergency because they simply don't have the resources or the infrastructure to handle the flood of illegal immigration that the Biden administration has allowed unchecked and Democrats have welcomed into the state of New York. Western New York taxpayers are tired of footing the bill for this. Our own state government appropriated $1 billion of our state tax dollars to fund the problem created by the sanctuary city policies enacted by New York City. Our residents are struggling under New York's highest in the nation tax burden, and we can't take it anymore. In 2017, because I think it's very important that we kind of rewind this and understand how this is a crisis of choice. Because there's a whole lot of new branding. Everyone wants to call everybody an asylum seeker. I visited with our customs agents, the experts, the people in the field that are responsible for dealing with this every single day. And the men and women that make up the Buffalo sector and the Swanton sector of Customs and Border Patrol, there's none finer. And they are doing the best that they can under the policies that they've been dealt. But, you know, the new branding of calling everyone that has come into this country illegally an asylum seeker, it's just false. Because you got people that come here because of the expiration of Title 42. This border has been porous at the southern border for this entire administration. That was a choice of the Joe Biden administration. They don't want to enforce current law. Title 42 expires. A rush comes into the country. And now these people, because of these organizations, are being coached how to fill out paperwork to seek asylum. I've been told by experts in the field, people that have dealt with this for 20 and 30 years, that maybe 8 to 10% of the people that have filled out this paperwork will actually be granted asylum when they get their court hearing. Now, their court hearings, because of the backlog, because of this crisis of choice, these people are given dates of 2026, 2027, 2028 to come back. Now, who's left to pick up the pieces in between? New York State, places that have become a destination for this. So it's important that you understand that first. But we're going to review as to how did we get here? How did New York become the haven? In 2017, then Governor Andrew Cuomo signed an executive order prohibiting New York State agencies and officers from inquiring or disclosing an individual's immigration status. Now, at that moment, our state became the #1 destination for illegal immigrants by executive fiat. None of your state legislators voted for that. They didn't have to because the governor put out an executive order. Cuomo's political executive order was all about getting in the national headlines against Trump at the time. It wasn't about smart public policy. It handcuffs our state law enforcement from being able to do their jobs and makes our communities a magnet for illegal immigration. Now, Governor Hochul, she can start by undoing this mess and using her executive authority to get this crisis under control with a simple swipe of a pen. She could undo that executive order by another executive order. That could happen today. But the question is, will she put New York citizens first? Now, we're seeing the same thing with allowing illegal immigrants to obtain driver's license. Now, some say, well, this is just something that we have to do. Non-citizen driver's licenses are critical. But here's the problem. New York State, because of that policy, also banned its databases from sharing information because we allow illegal immigrants to have a driver's license in New York because of the so-called green light law. They can't share that database with Customs. They can't share that database with ICE. They can't share that database with any federal law enforcement agency. So if a New York State plate gets read in a state, say in Virginia, Well, those officers can't get the information. How is that fair? How is that about justice? How is that about doing the right thing and keeping people safe? Because we're trying to shield illegal immigration. This is all political theater. Now, according to the Buffalo News, in upwards of 540 migrants have been bused to Western New York hotels since mid-June. One right behind us. You've been probably in this steps many times at this point. Now, for the past few years, it's been pretty easy for Democrats in New York, over 1,000 miles away from the southern border where the crisis has raged since Joe Biden took office. They've been encouraging open borders by declaring this a sanctuary. You know, as New York City is a sanctuary city, they told the world they wouldn't enforce federal laws. So is it any surprise that people, when they get over the border and people in Texas, they have to mitigate the crisis because the onslaught is constant. So they ask these people, where do you want to go? New York. Because they know they can go there, hide in plain sight. There'll be no law enforcement taking place, and they are well on their way to being cared for, housed, clothed, you name it. And it's costing billions. I saw a price tag of $5 billion the other day. We've already appropriated $1 billion in New York State tax dollars. This effort to score cheap political points, it's now hurting our community. We can't stand by as violent sexual assaults and the introduction of diseases we haven't seen in this country for a long time. They threaten our community. If this is about compassion, where's the compassion for the rape victims? And I hate to break it to you, there's a lot of people at the outset of this that when the states of emergency were called for and the line was drawn in the sand by local communities like Chautauqua County and Cattaraugus County and Allegheny County and Chemung County and many other counties across upstate, when they said to the governor, hell no, we don't want you to bring migrants to Western New York or upstate New York, there was different politicians around this state that said that was morally repugnant. We don't have the infrastructure to care for people that are here and idle and don't have, any purpose to come here other than they understand there are free benefits to glean. We are a nation of immigrants. I am not anti-immigrant. I fully support a process that allows people to come to this country in the legal fashion that has been the tradition. Everybody here today, myself included, we're the product of legal immigration. And it is what makes this country great. But we are also a nation of laws and law and order. Law and order needs to be celebrated and conducted every single day. We need to respect those that put on a uniform, our law enforcement officers that are tasked with doing the job of keeping our community safe. When you allow for a system of illegal immigration and let people in here that we don't know who they are, where they're at, and then you give no bid contract to some company that's rubber stamping asylum paperwork and say, oh, all is well with the world, you're going to have the problems. I hate to be the guy to say I told you so, but there's an awful lot of people in public life that said I told you so, that this would happen, that we'd have a rise in crime, that we would have heinous acts like we've had with 2 rapes right here in Western New York. It's time to stop the political nonsense and put America first again. It starts by passing H.R. 2 through the U.S. Senate. We passed this bill in May. And on the state level, Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams they say they want this crisis to come to a halt. They want this to slow down. They want relief. Well, they should use their executive authority to not to deploy the National Guard, but to stop the influx and absolutely grind this to a halt. Eric Adams says the inn's closed. He's got no more room in New York City. Well, it's time to start enacting policies that back that up. Call the city council together. Repeal their sanctuary city status. This is a self-made crisis, and it's on them to fix this. No one in Erie County asked for this crisis to come here to this community. No one in upstate New York voted for sanctuary city status. It's on them to fix it. Don't blame the company you hired in a no-bid contract and said, oh, it's a snafu. No. Anyone that had any objectivity could have seen this coming 100 miles away. Don't blame Trump or any other boogeyman that you want to blame. This is your own mess, and clean it the hell up. So I'm calling on Governor Kathy Hochul to do the right thing today and reverse the executive orders that make our state a sanctuary. With a stroke of a pen, she can immediately start to get New York back on the right track. And I'm calling on the U.S. Senate to get back to work and to start ignoring this crisis and pass H.R. 2, the Secure Our Border Act, which would reform our asylum process, harden our border, finish the wall, and give our Border Patrol agents the respect and the tools that they need. House Republicans passed this legislation in May. And we're calling again, as we do every day, on President Biden to start doing his job, and Secretary Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, to do their job and enforce our border policies. Without borders, we don't have a country. Border security is national security. This is serious. And you're here every day covering this now. This is one of the top issues in our community right now, and we need to address it directly. It's all fun and games, and it's all, virtue signaling politics until reality sets in. And I just want people to understand that not everyone is on board with these open border policies, as we've seen for so many in the leadership of our state and our county. And there are people ready to fight back and get the right policies enacted. But folks, elections have consequences, is all I'll leave you with. But I'll take any questions you have at this time.
What are you expecting to see? Hochul said she was sending in the National Guard. Have you had any correspondence on that? When do you folks expect to see that come in?
You know what I think Governor Hochul should do? Is she could help the people of Erie County. Send about a dozen buses up here and bring the folks back to New York City where they came from. But let's face facts, she's not going to do that. The National Guard, really, that just takes the burden off of our local law enforcement. I don't know that National Guard should be used to be cops, essentially, is what we need. And it's a little too late. The National Guard, if you wanted to use them effectively, it should be at the border, preventing this in the first place. And the president allowed Title 42 to expire. We had a mass influx, but this influx has been going on. I mean, when you listen to these people say, oh, it's down to a trickle. Well, 4,000 or 5,000 people a day isn't a trickle. That's a lot of people coming over this border. And when you add it up over a course of time, that becomes a lot of people. Now, we've had about 1 million disappear into the interior of the country. We don't know where they're at. They're called gotaways by Border Patrol. That's a problem. We've had 100 that we've caught at the border that are on the terrorist watch list. How many of the gotaways would have been on the terrorist watch list? We'll never know. We'll never know. So Governor Hochul should do the right thing and shut this down. New York City made a decision to become a sanctuary city. Governor Hochul's an upstater. She's a Western New Yorker. Why is she exporting New York City's problems upstate? That's the question I have for Governor Hochul.
Just getting a text from an Erie County lawmaker. I know what you're saying about stopping control of the border in southern New York, but unfortunately they're here. They are here in our communities. And just like New York City, should there be some kind of federal funding? Where do you stand on that to alleviate local taxpayers? As we heard the Cheektowaga Police Department say, we're hurt. They're seeking reimbursement from the state's seeking reimbursement or some kind of funding from you and the federal government. What would you say?
Listen, we have put so much no strings attached money out on the street from the federal government. I just got to Congress in January, so I haven't voted on any of what's come in the last few years. But the federal government has rained money down on states and localities. We're at $32 trillion in debt, and the Biden administration can't stop spending. We had to hold, a real standoff during the debt ceiling negotiations to get them to pull the reins back on spending a bit, and we got $2 trillion in concessions. Mayor Adams says there's no room at the end. There's not a lot of money left in Washington unless we start the printing press back up. That's not the legacy we need to leave our children and our grandchildren. Again, these are policies of choice. The administration can fix this. I'm sure Joe Biden will seek more money from Congress for this. But at the same time, Kathy Hochul's appropriated $1 billion in New York state tax dollars. So everybody here is paying for this. So all this poppycock about how no Western New York money is going to fund this. That's just nonsense. There are Erie County tents out at the tuberculosis outbreak the other day. Erie County personnel are there. You're not going to tell me that New York City is going to reimburse every dollar of every man hour spent by Erie County personnel. Undoubtedly, our law enforcement officers have been forced to do this over and over and over. And the other thing that isn't being covered is the fact that New York's horrific criminal justice policies make sure you'll never hear the real story. The story of the gas station next door to the hotel that's getting robbed all day long and shoplifted, because it doesn't behoove the local law enforcement to arrest these people, because all they do is get an appearance ticket to come back. The bail reform laws have made much of this unreportable. And it should come as no shock that we have a rise in petty crime, quality of life crimes, and now heinous crimes because of this. So I love the idea that we're going to create this haven, and then you're going to point back. You should point back to the president, and they should call on the president to do the right thing and to reinstate Title 42, shut the border down, and enforce the laws that are on the books.
It's coming from a Republican.
Good for that Erie County Republican in the legislature.
Respect, sir, you're a representative now of the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
This is a federal government problem. I understand your point about throwing money away, but let's face it.
I expect that we will face appropriations requests. I haven't seen them. I'm not going to comment on a bill that hasn't been written. The president doesn't know what the hell to do here. Supposedly, Kathy Hochul is talking to the administration on a regular basis. There's been no ask made, to my knowledge, at this point of the House.
Talk, she said it last week in a press conference, that there's talk of inserting it into a funding bill for Ukraine, and trying to insert money in there for New York State, New York City. Where would you stand on that? How would you vote?
I am not going to give you a theoretical on a bill that has not been written.
Well, how would you vote? Do you favor it, or do you get...
I think that we have to see some policy changes before I would advocate for more spending. Don't create a haven and then expect everyone else to clean up your mess.
Right, but this is a national issue.
Yeah.
What would you say again to people here in Cheektowaga?
I absolutely feel for the law-abiding people at Cheektowaga that this has been thrust on. They didn't vote for this. Their governor brought this to their backyard. Their county executive welcomed it with open arms and declared everyone that opposed it as morally repugnant. These aren't the people that are paying the price. The people that are paying the price are the property taxpayers. But whether they take it out of this pocket or this pocket, is there a big difference?
The Republican and Democratic presidents and Congresses.
We had the best border security in the 4 years of the Trump administration. You're talking about when I was in elementary school, my friend. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. No, we're talking about today. Today. The problems today.
Isn't it also history? To be honest, Congress has not dealt with it, and we gave Congress...
All right. But now you're talking about comprehensive immigration reform. How do you pass comprehensive immigration reform when the barn door is open? When you just are letting anyone in here that wants to come in the name of asylum. Asylum's being abused. Like I said earlier in this press conference, 8 to 10% of the people that fill out this paperwork will actually legally be granted asylum. If anything, what I'd support funding for tomorrow is more judges to expedite this process so that we can get the problem back to the countries in which they came. Because they are not coming through a legal system, and it disrespects everyone that does go through the process legally. We grant asylum to people from war-torn countries that lives are in immediate danger. People of Ukraine. There's a lot of Ukrainian refugees. I celebrate that, because their homes are being bombed. It is something that is going on. But someone that comes here for economic relief, that's not an asylum seeking success story. That's like saying, yeah, my neighbor's got a nicer house, I'm going to go live in that one. I mean, that is not the way this works. But the administration has chosen to abuse the process, rubber stamp the applications so that they can all remain here.
But, this gentleman, the incident that just happened over the weekend that came out, they said he was from the Congo. So I'm trying to understand, are they mixing them in from the folks that already came into New York City from other parts of the globe?
There's people coming across the border from all over the globe because they understand, there's the entry point. So they're getting to Mexico and coming up the southern border, getting muled in when they were sneaking in. And now, when they come across the border, because of the expiration of Title 42, you have people that are just coming straight to New York City because they know the gravy train starts in New York City.
Did the mayor of New York City take advantage of working through the resettlement agencies versus working through government and county government? Because Poloncarz kept saying it was out of his hands and it was a working directly between really the state.
I can assure you that any of the counties that declared states of emergency haven't had this problem. This was because the county executive wanted a virtue signal, throw open his arms and say that we are a loving community. We are a loving community. We are one of the most loving places on planet Earth. But we're being taken advantage of, and we are disrespecting taxpayers every single day when we house people that have come into this country illegally. You had a question?
It's rare to have security at one of your events. Are you getting threats about this particular stance or even this particular press conference?
We got a few unsettling phone calls this morning.
We got
So,
in today's press
yeah.
conference. What do you think about that?
It's part of the job. So, listen, I'm not going to be intimidated by people that want to call and say things, but you take precautions, because of things that have happened around the country in the past. We have a protocol through Capitol Police that we work through, and we've so just there's some on-duty sheriff's officers here just for a few minutes while we have this press conference.
That looks like Homeland Security actually back over there. A lot of
Well, I don't think they might not be here for me. They might be here for next door. Who knows?
What about hearing that a couple of these hotels are, behind in their taxes? Is there anything again that someone can do to step into?
If they're behind on their taxes, maybe we could take it off the bill.
I think a question that a lot of the residents of Cheektowaga want to know is why Cheektowaga? Monroe County just got their first group of asylum seekers to arrive. There are 77, and they're in the city of Rochester. But why were they chosen to be in Cheektowaga and not in the city of Buffalo?
Well, I think perhaps you have a lot of housing, or a lot of hotels. Some of the hotels aren't on the top of the stock list, and they felt it was affordable compared to New York City. This is a very attractive option. What does a hotel run in New York City? And the governor herself told me, now this is 3 months ago at this point, the day that Title 42 expired, she said that we had 40% of New York City's hotels at that moment were full of migrants. That doesn't bode very well for a thriving tourist economy or the future of those hotels. And you see the imagery. And I talk to my friends in New York City every day, and they say the city is drastically changed by this. Now, why Cheektowaga? I don't know. Why Erie County? You had local elected officials that were, trying to play Emma Lazarus and throw their arms open and pretend that this community was going to be this beacon of hope for this crisis. I assure you, none of the voters are out there saying we really want an illegal immigration crisis here in Western New York. Any other questions? I want to make sure it's on the record I answered every question. Okay, thanks everybody. Really appreciate you coming out today.